In this session, the AI powered GTM, we will explore how AI is transforming GTM strategies, real world AI workflow use cases, live examples, and practical insights you can apply right away. Hi, I am Pragya from the GTM team at Glow Radius. We work with 200 plus companies from fast growing startups to publicly listed companies. We see a lot of data which gives us unique insights into what's working in GTM today and what's falling flat. Joining me today is Eric. Hi, Eric. Great to have you here.
Hi, Pragya.
So, Eric is the founder of Applied Storytelling, helping brands use AI to speed up brand strategy and storytelling while keeping the human touch that makes GTM resonate. Before we dive in, Eric, would you like to share a bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been involved in brand strategy and brand storytelling for quite a while. Applied Storytelling, my company, has been around since 2006, and we've basically developed principles around storytelling very early on, and we've evolved them as the market has changed, as more and more people have entered the space, and of course, most recently, as AI has unleashed a whole new realm of capabilities and enabled us to refine our deliverable and our workflows. Briefly, our work extends across categories and similar to Glow Radius, from companies ranging from startups to global 100 companies.
Appreciate that, Eric. With that, let's quickly set the stage for what we will cover today. So, here is what we will cover today. Three real use cases showing how top GTM teams are using AI today, a live example of custom AI workflow multiplying GTM motion by 10x, hidden signals, and a massive automation. 40 hours of work can be reduced to 40 minutes. And finally, practical takeaways you can apply instantly to drive pipeline impact. Let's kick things off. Eric, you work closely with GTM teams. What's one AI use case that's really moving the needle in 2025?
Well, the use cases that we're most familiar with and that we do feel are moving the needle are use cases around upstream GTM applications. These are areas where a lot of tooling hasn't been developed yet, but through expert practitioners, companies are able to develop much more refined personalities that can lead to much more nuanced expression and also much more careful positioning, which is really important because especially in a number of categories right now, including AI itself, the marketplace is very crowded. And entering the marketplace with a differentiated offering and a differentiated vibe is just so critical, especially in these fast emerging categories. So this is really crucial right now. I predict we're going to see similar kind of tools developed, level of sophistication to what's happening downstream, but it's not quite at the same level yet.
This is really insightful. Eric, do you want to share some prompts?
Yes, I do. I do. I have a couple of presentations that I think will address a lot of the kinds of things that really get to the heart of how positioning and brand personality happen and with AI. So if you are okay with it, I've got some screens and I can share them and maybe walk through them.
Sure.
Hopefully you can
Okay.
see that. Can you see that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. So what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about personality and its role in GTM very quickly. Then we'll look at the process that we use and some of the sample prompts. There are many more prompts than what we'll share here, but they'll give you an idea of the sort of flow of the prompts. We'll look at the process that we use, which is an AI-assisted process, and then we'll end with a use case, a sample from our own work. So let's dive in. So when we think about personality in relation to the sum of brand communications, the sum of brand building, we really see it as part of the source code. So it really lays the foundation for identity and voice. This is something you're going to want to develop before you look at your visual system, develop your logo, all these kinds of things. And the same thing for voice. So this shapes the tone and manner that you express yourself in. The two work from the same foundation, which is what we're presenting here. So personality defines how a brand moves, speaks, and feels, and everything downstream really derives from this in those areas. So some sample prompts, these are very simple prompts, and these prompts have been around since, before AI, but they're very valuable and they're even more rich in an AI context. If your brand were an animal or totem, what would it be and why? Where would it live? What would it protect, pursue, or nurture? How would it move or rest? What others would admire it or fear about it? So there are all these little scenarios that we can aggregate and then compare and contrast and evaluate using AI. And that can lead to a very rich personality. So here's the process right here. So there are 5 steps. The first step is discovery. Then we move through clustering the traits. Then we move to mapping these traits against archetypes. Archetypes are a very useful framework for us. Then we define these attributes. And we're really looking for a small set of attributes that are very workable by designers and communicators. And then finally, we are looking to validate what we've come up with. So these 5 functions are all powered by AI with that human input. So when we're talking about discovery, we're really looking for these questions that are about symbols, about totems, feelings, these kinds of things that allow people to associate qualities with a little bit of remove from their company itself, literally. And from that, we get, tone, values, metaphors, things like this. We take that into trait clustering, and we're really trying to distill this down to 5 to 7 themes, which is the basis of these attributes, the candidates for the personality. Then we take these and we say, okay, when we look at the screen of archetypes that are out there, and they're different frameworks, but classically there are like 12 archetypes. What ones are really percolating up? What's the greatest alignment that we're seeing? And so we have that as a framework to work with as a basis. And then from there, once we kind of triangulate on the ones that are most meaningful, we arrive at, the definition of the traits. And then we look at that, we score that content to see how well the tone fits. We look at consistency using various metrics that AI provides for us. And then we have our personality profile. So let's take a look at, well, actually first, so here are some of the prompts. And again, there are many, many more, but these sort of prompts sort of kick off each of these different steps. So we already talked about the first one. When we get to trait clustering, we're just asking AI to cluster the quotes into 5 recurring traits. We don't want to, again, don't want to have too many. And then we're asking to map the traits to the archetypes and explain why. Why are you doing this? What's the rationale for this? And then that definition, which is really what we want to take away. Now, built into this process is training for the AI to understand that the traits need to be varied, right? We don't want a cluster that's too close and too narrow. We don't want too few traits. All of these things are baked into the intelligence that we're working with. So here's what comes out for a company called Telluride, which is actually a company we're building. It's a AI-based company that will generate story-based insight. What we got from this exercise that we ran was 5 attributes that are quite distinct from each other. They're easy to relate to because they're very human attributes: poised, elegant, insightful, supportive, and illuminating. And we know from the work that we've done to get to this point that these are quite distinct from the attributes of other companies in this space. Competitive insight is baked into the intelligence that's working for us. So let's just take one of those attributes, poised. So the label by itself isn't so valuable. We need to flesh it out a little bit. So other words that are related: steady, deliberate, calm under pressure. If someone were to talk about this quality and they were getting that impression from the brand, this brand feels centered and assured. When we're designing for it, we're looking for balanced pacing, a confident tone, visual harmony, things like that. And it's always nice to define something by what it's not as well. So not defensive, aloof, or tentative. So all of this was generated by AI using our prompts and guiding it through the process. And it yields something that's really definitive for us, really distinctive, really useful for the designers and writers who will follow in our footsteps. So that's example number one. We can look at positioning, unless you have any questions at this point, Pragya, about what I've shared so far.
This is a really well-rounded playbook. Thanks for sharing, Eric.
Great. All right. So now we're going to look at positioning. And again, we're going to look at the same company, Telluride, because it's useful to see how the positioning and personality work together. As before, we'll share some of the prompts that we use along the way, and we'll see what they yield at the end. This is a great example of human experts working hand in glove with a well-established process, which AI itself has defined, and which is generating a huge, acting on a huge amount of intelligence to yield results which are very distinctive and we can use with confidence. Let me go to full screen here. Okay. So we talked about personality as being sort of like the source code for look and feel. Well, brand positioning is really the strategic focus. And when we're thinking about all the stuff that GTM involves, all the different things that we can do with AI, positioning is really what precedes a campaign. So if you're using AI to develop campaigns, assess the effectiveness campaigns, you want to go back to this as your starting point. And this is the decision, what is our positioning that makes everything else coherent? It really ties everything together. So very important to get this right. It's the single most ownable idea that your brand can occupy in the market, and AI can tell us what that idea can and should be. So sample prompts that we ask at the very outset, these are super basic. I mean, this is really just providing some fundamental insight about your business, about your brand. So tell me what it is in one sentence. Tell me what you want to own in your customer's mind, if you know this. What evidence can you provide to claim this? And what alternative ideas are dominating in your category? Now, you may not know this, in which case there will be further prompts to help you arrive at something. The AI do its thinking for you. Also, the process that we use, again, if you're really starting a startup, you may not have a lot of documentation at this point, or you may just kind of want to use this in a speculative way, which is perfectly fine. But if you've done work, if you've done competitive work, if you've done that kind of research, if you have an established strat plan, vision and mission, these kinds of things you can input. We will ask for that. We will use that, and that will refine the responses that we get from one step to the next. So again, as with personality development work, positioning has a 5-step process, different steps, but 5-step process. Discovery again at the beginning, generating ideas. We like to test various positioning scenarios. You'll see a word here, créneau. That's a classic positioning word. It really means that idea that just slices through all the noise and sticks in your mind and really represents what's distinctive about a brand. We score this, and there are a number of areas in which positioning has to work. So we want it to be distinctive, obviously. We want it to be relevant to the audience. We want it to be credible. We want to be able to defend it if we put it out there. And we want to be able to extend it as our business grows or our brand um, enters new markets or enters new product categories. So these are the things that AI will score for us. Then we want to make sure that what it's giving back to us is actually positioning and not sloganeering or ad copy or anything like that. It's about an idea. It's not about copy at this point. So we do a little heuristic check there. And then finally, we validate, we align the proof, the story, and the structure. We look at the scoring and we determine what the ownable idea is that we're going to build our brand around. So some prompts. I shared a few of the very basic discovery prompts, but here's some others. An idea generation, we're just asking AI to generate, 3 to 5 of these chrono, these core positioning ideas, if you will, based on what we've shared, the category of business we're in, the capabilities that we've explained that we're bringing to market, and really where we hope to go as a business, as a brand. Then we want to score. So we're prompting scoring around each of these 5 qualities. These are important to address, again, each individually, and then aggregate that score. Finally, we want to flag any phrases that are slogan-like. We want to make sure we're really looking at ideas, not just language. And then we're going to use that final scoring to make our determination, and then a proof ladder. So what are the various things that are allowing us from what we've shared or what we need to be able to develop in order to really occupy that positioning and win with it, grow our business with it. So let's take a look at Telluride again, our sample company, and what the positioning is that we arrived at through this process. This is a upstream story intelligence. In this case, it's actually kind of a new category. But within a category, if it were an occupied category, we would have that idea that really drives home how we're different from all the other players in our space. So we get this definition. Again, this is yielded by our work with AI. Telluride is the intelligence layer that architects meaning before creative execution. It transforms AI from a production tool into a system of strategic foresight. And the kinds of proofs that it delivers back to us that we need to really fully inhabit and continue to grow and strengthen over the time as we build our brand is that the AI will, the story tool will study how our competitors communicate. We'll look for patterns there. AI will help us to find these patterns and identify the strengths that we have. We'll provide automated scoring that shows how the brand is doing in terms of clarity and consistency. And finally, this particular positioning is relevant and defensible because our company is developing shared dashboards that all the different people within the organization, all the different people working on go-to-market, for example, can work from together. So that's an example, again, of how positioning works upstream with AI. And now you've seen both positioning and personality. You can see how they work together.
You have really broken down that well. This is insightful, Eric. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
All right. So this brings us to the next part. Here are 10 specific use cases where we see AI delivering real pipeline impact. One of the use case can be a hyper-targeted job signal prospecting. We can detect when key decision makers change roles so your team can strike at the right time. Another one can be score and qualifying TAM. So you can automatically score and prioritize accounts in your TAM using the custom AI workflow, and there are many more. These are all the practical ways of custom AI workflows cut through the noise and help teams focus on the highest intent opportunities. Let's take a look at one of the use case. So this IT company was having a hard time finding businesses that needed Salesforce implementation. So they were not just looking for any business, they wanted ones that have requirements in code to cache or CPU solutions, but they were struggling to figure out which company needed that. And how do you reach only those specific target companies? We will take a look how all this can be done by custom AI workflow at a fraction of a cost. So this is the platform. Let's take a look at the custom AI workflow of IT consulting. So finding which companies have requirement in code to cache or CPQ solutions means digging through multiple job sources like job boards, career pages, LinkedIn across 10 plus tabs, and the process is slow and extremely time consuming for a sales team. But with AI workflow, we can do all in seconds. So this is how it works. It starts with a web search, and after web search, this is fed to an LLM, and we ask Does the company have requirement in code to cache or CPQ? And based on that, it gives you a signal and trigger. So this is one of the use case. This brings us to the next use case. All right. So let's take a look at one more use case. One of the company wanted to find dental clinics, small dental clinics, especially in Texas. They also wanted to find if their website has an inquiry form or not because it shows they require help in lead generation and more traffic, and they were struggling to figure this out. And add to that, how do you reach only to those hyper targeted list of targets? Let's take a look at the custom agent of this use case. So, hunting for these dental clinics on Google Maps means clicking through dozens of listings, cross checking addresses, and manually copying details. It's slow and frustrating grind that eats up hours of the sales team's day. And this is how the AI agent works. So it searches through the Google Maps for dental clinics in Texas and scrape all the data, all the results. After that, the next step is this is fed to an LLM and we ask it to extract a list of dental clinics from the provided Google Maps search results. And based on that, it gives you all the output. So this is another use case. And the custom AI workflow runs 24/7 if you make them recurring. You can keep adding more tasks. You can score and qualify and check for inquiry from, and you can scan for reviews. And it can go to any website like G2 site, review site, website. And you can keep building the agent and you can give as many as tasks you want to give to the agent. So this is a custom AI workflow. Incorporating AI agents into your GTM strategy not only streamlines operations but also enables more targeted and personalized engagement. This leads to improved outcomes and a competitive edge in the market. And here is the exciting part. You don't have to rely on our product or any other vendor. If your team has the bandwidth, you can build it in house using tools like Make.com, N8N, or any other open source platform. So the secret isn't the tools, it's the strategy, approach, and execution that truly drives results. All right. Eric, do you have anything before we conclude this?
No, Pragya, I think the use cases you showed are highly important, very relevant, and the kinds of use cases that lead to the needs we talked about a little bit farther upstream are use cases that every brand faces when it's getting started. And again, at the foundation, as it looks to be efficient in the messages and the competition that the agents are going to go look at, the prospects that they're going to go look at, and so on. So I think a very nice pairing we're seeing here between foundational upstream GTM applications and then everyday downstream.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric, for those insights and for joining us today. It's been really valuable for everyone tuning in.
Thanks, Pragya.